Well, ornamental grasses are becoming more and more popular in the American landscape, and as a result, we've put in a demonstration garden here at our studio gardens in Stillwater. And I'd like for you to meet Mr. Olen Thomas. Now, of course, Olen's been on the show a couple of times, but he and his wife Teresa are volunteer ambassadors, and they've been very instrumental in designing and researching and installing our garden here. And Olen, welcome back. Tell us, why do you think ornamental grasses are so popular in the landscape?
Well, I believe it's mostly because of their versatility. They just have a lot to offer. I think a lot of people think of grass as being green and something you cut, but actually when you use them as ornamentals, you can get a variety of color, texture, and various effects.
Right. Well, one thing I don't think that a lot of people think of is the sound that even is associated with ornamental grasses. With our Oklahoma winds, we obviously get a lot of blowing and rubbing sound, but also some nice winter color. And Olen, let's walk over here and talk about some of the ones we have in the garden. I guess really the first way to classify the grasses would be cool and warm season, and tell us about the differences of those.
Well, a cool season grass will set seed and go dormant after it's done its job, and that occurs early in the season. You can see that this is a good example of that. The seed heads are already brown, they're maturing, the entire plant is going south.
Right.
The one next to it may look dormant, but it isn't. That's actually a seed that's ripe and growing. That's a warm season grass.
Right, and this was canary grass, so again it finished out a little bit earlier. Now, in addition to the cool and warm season, I mean, it's amazing how many are out there. We have over 35 planted here in our studio gardens, and we've got some tall ones and some short ones. What's our tallest one back there, Olen?
Well, that's Ravina grass in the back. You can see it's just getting ready to bloom, and I would judge the tops of that to be about 9 feet at present.
Right, and again, it's going to give us a lot of display back in later in the fall, I guess. But what about the smallest one that we've got in the garden?
This is a very attractive selection right here. It's a dwarf pennisetum. Little Bunny is the cultivar. It makes a very nice edging plant and a nice grouping.
We've even used that one in the garden railroad because it's so small. Now, also, it's interesting to see the texture difference as far as the width of the blade. Yeah,
this is Miscanthus sinensis silver feather. That's German for silver feather. The blossoms on it will be a very whitish texture. Its cousin, Miscanthus gracilis, is a very fine textured grass.
Right, a little bit grayer color, I guess, too, isn't it?
Right, and it drapes a bit more.
Right. Olen, what about pest problems for ornamental grasses?
Well, one of the things we've learned is that the ornamental grasses can really attract grasshoppers to your landscape. Now, we live in a rural area, much like the area surrounding our studio gardens here, but if you live in town, I really wouldn't expect you to have that many grasshoppers. You should have some damage, but nothing like you see here.
Now, the other exciting thing about ornamental grasses is the color differences. We've got a brilliant one that really sticks out with the people who come by the studio gardens. What about this one?
Yeah, this one seems to be everybody's favorite. It's the red pennisetum. This is on the cover of this year's Oklahoma gardening brochure. It has good color, very colorful seed heads that persist a long time.
And of course, this is commonly called purple fountain grass, and what we've noticed is that it won't overwinter for us here in Stillwater. So when selecting ornamental grasses, you need to make sure you're purchasing either an annual or a perennial. I'd say the majority of them are probably perennials, wouldn't you say? But this one just won't overwinter, so we found it easier to just purchase it each year and grow it as an annual. Now, some of you in southern Oklahoma might find it a little bit different, but we've even tried to protect it, mulch it, dig it up, stick it in the barn, and we still couldn't get it to come through. So keep those things in mind. Now, Olen, most of these ornamental grasses actually prefer full sun, but we have a few varieties or cultivars that will grow in shade. So Olen, why don't we go take a look at some of those?
Let's do that. Steve, here's another clump that we have of the red fountain grass, and as you can see, we have it in partial shade, and it looks very nice. So this, remember, this is one that tolerates partial shade.
Right, now in the front, we've got a lower growing one. What's that one?
This is one of the Carex. This is one of my favorite grasses. This comes in a number of forms. This one has a yellow or goldish color to it. There's another one that's much more white. The reason I like this grass is that because it looks like this year-round, never goes dormant, never looks ugly. It looks like this in December and in June.
Now, this particular planting gets a little bit of morning sun, but Olen, I mean, we've got some in pretty heavy shade, and even at my house we've got some in heavy shade, so that's really exciting to know that there's that much versatility in the ornamental grasses. Now, we've done one thing, though, that we wouldn't suggest, right?
Right.
As far as our planting here. When you look at this entire landscape bed, you'll notice that it's really very crowded. We've planted them too close together, but we did that on purpose just to show you the effect and how many different ones there are. So you want to plant with plenty of space between them, and remember, especially in the perennials, as they mature the second and third year, they're going to even get bigger than what they would the first year. The other thing that we've learned the hard way is don't get them too close to the edges of the bed, because when you're mowing your grass, you know, you may have to sacrifice some of them, and some of ours have been weed-eated a little bit too. So make sure you get them back farther away from the edge of the beds, because they will cascade. So really, Olen, they look better in a landscape setting, almost as a specimen plant, don't they?
Yes, indeed.
We've got some examples we want to show them. So let's go on over to our native landscape.
Let's go. Steve, this is one of my favorite ornamental grasses. It's one of the natives, little blue stem. You can see it's got nice, good height. It's just getting ready to bloom here in late summer. This particular one has a nice blue-green color to it. I especially like this one. Very upright, and will also have very good fall color.
Well, I mean, it really makes quite an impact in the way this native landscape has been designed too, especially putting it right up here for the porch. Now, Olen, you tell me that because these are native, there's some interesting history. Why don't you tell us about that as we go show them another one there?
Well, the grasses that we're looking at here, including little blue stem and this one right here, big blue stem, are both constituents of the tall grass prairie. And you can see the difference, obviously, between little blue stem, which we just looked at, and big blue stem. This one is a good 6 and 7 foot high, but again, it's very upright, nice blue-green color, very ornamental. It will be ornamental for a shorter period, however. Doesn't persist through the winter.
Okay. Well, you know, we have just barely touched on some of the grasses that we have at the garden. So if you'd like more about the ornamental grasses that we're growing here at the Studio Gardens, you can go by your county extension office within the next month, and they should have a brochure that we've put together that tells you the genus, species, and common name of all the ones we're growing here. And Olen, thank you very much for all your hard work, and tell Teresa thanks as well.
I'll do that.